Alrighty, aloha there, and we're going to be reading once again Rising to Greatness, the history of Naughty Dog. The history back in 2013, so won't talk about anything recently, but this is a pretty in-depth article, so I'll just go talk about what is here. Besides that, I also saw this icon in IGN. COVID-19 vaccine updates and how to help. I figure it's similar to other headline articles. Gives a bunch of links, useful, but obviously you see a person who has band-aid but has a shot that's taken on the right hand, even though there's a band-aid in the left hand, so I hope it's not like the second one in the same day. Well, without further ado, let's go from where I left off. Alright. Yeah, I'm going to buy the sphere. Oh, the good old funny RPG. Not that one, this one. Oh, this guy. What's this one? It's just. But yeah, all this is from Naughty Dog, or as it was called, Naughty Dog Software, all the way back around the 80s. From the two pals. Alrighty. Yeah, we went through here. We haven't went through here, so onward. Yeah, got that. Yeah, I just wanted to skip through it. Alright, so I just start here. The truth is, Gavin said, as we knew, the same guys like fantasy and science fiction. EA wasn't interested in reading a 300-page script and game design documents, and frankly, Gavin and Ruben was far more interested in grading as they wanted than explaining their ideas up front. With Way of the Warrior, their 3DO game, they flew by the seat of their pants. Nobody's going to tell why our broad call is wrong, Gavin later said about Way of the Warrior, because there was no publisher constantly looking over their shoulders. Self-funding also allowed them to be smarter with their money and time and go where the gamers and the money were. We're going to look at, before starting the game, what's hot now and what's a good bang for the buck development-wise, and try to make the best game in that. To do a little more market timing, our previous games, there was no market timing to them. End quote. They were just what Andy wanted to play, or what I wanted to play, Ruben said. Naughty Dog's previous games were just what Andy wanted to play, or what I wanted to play. When Way of the Warrior's development began in 1993, fighting games were really hot. Street Fighter II, Mortal Kombat, and Samurai Showdown were tearing up the arcade and the living room alike. Way of the Warrior was going to be 3DO's fighting game, and it was to go up against the best Midway, Capcom, and SNK has to offer. They felt it was fairly easy genre to create a game in. It wouldn't take us the 3 years the past games have taken us. It wouldn't take us the 3 years the past games have taken us, Rowan said. RPGs are just bigger and take a lot more time and effort. Fighting games, on the other hand, are very direct. You have your characters and you have the stages, and once your game is running, which didn't make much to do, all of the fine-tuning great fighting games required could be accomplished. Okay. all the development resources were put into two characters on screen. They're big, they got a lot of animation and a lot of moves relative to other games at the time, which had a different balance resource-wise. Gavin explained. We look at this and we're like, that's a good bang for the buck. That's a good bang for the buck. You make one background and one character, you play against yourself and you got a playable game. You could start working at balance issues and play issues and stuff. Well, yeah, that's campus. Prestigious University MIT was the backdrop to Way of the Warriors development. Yeah, this is part of it. It's a pretty low res image, but yeah. Ruben and Gavin decided to digitalize direction with Way of the Warrior, which, like Mortal Kombat, at some levels, it's kind of a slightly more comedic Mortal Kombat ripoff. It's very over the top, Gavin said. Their major inspiration was the droves of Hong Kong kung fu movies they watched together. To make the game, they knew they had to be in the same location again. Ruben tried to get Gavin to move to Newport Beach, California, but Gavin was still attending MIT and was convinced Ruben to come to the wintry suburbs of Boston. Gavin acquired a subpar apartment for them to live in as they worked, and they went about the business of creating a 3D game. For the first time, they bought on contractors to help them complete the game. Alright, now I'm here. They couldn't afford to get a traditional blue screen, so they bought a tan-colored screen, and particularly a tarp, and nailed it to the wall in their living room. It covered the only windows in the apartment, and it covered up the air conditioning vents as well, as they positioned it on a certain wall. Positioned in a certain wall, since they lacked the proper lenses for their camera. It also complicated the act of actual filming. To get shots against the screen, they had to open their front door and film from their hallway, which confused and freak out their academic neighbors that attend MIT in Harvard. Meanwhile, Gavin would stay up till Gavin would stay up till all hours of the night working on audio processing. Two men mimic the kung fu. Here. Man, I'm just gonna say here. Sounds that would creepily seep out of their apartments as their neighbors tried to sleep. But while Way of the Warrior was a game designed to be easy to develop, it became a project that was too big for them to handle. For the first time, they brought on contractors to help them complete the game. It was the last time Gavin and Ruben worked on a game by themselves. World-renowned robotics professor Robin Brooks in the Way of the Warrior is in Way of the Warrior. Robin Brooks is in the Way of the Warrior. Way of the Warrior. Yes, tongue twister. It quickly got to the point where, for the first time, two people couldn't make the whole game, Ruben said, because of the fact that they didn't use a proper blue screen to get footage. It required them to elaborately cut out, pixel by pixel, the characters they filmed. They loved the look they got from their approach, and they described it as a Sin City style, but they needed to get others to help them achieve it by doing the grunt work. So we went out, Rowan continued, and we put up literally on bulletin boards for people to do this cropping, cutting, and coloring. We got people to come in and do the tedious part. The folks they got to help them on the Way of the Warrior were from all walks of life. One guy was a law student, another was a Boston area native who, after After his experience with the game, ended up staying in the industry that still works on games today. And their lead tester, he was the valedictorian of the Harvard class of 1994, a guy named David Liu. And their lead tester, he was the valedictorian of the Harvard class of 1994, a guy named David Liu. Liu's not only famous for his academic pedigree, I was thinking prestige, or because of his earlier work with the Naughty Dog, he was a prolific professional Street Fighter 2 player. He was one of the 7 guys at Street Fighter who's just insanely good, Gavin said. Liu would even try to plug Way of the Warrior during television interviews about his time at Harvard and was on wanted lists at casinos in Las Vegas and Atlanta City for counting cards. At least he made it out in one piece. Well, unless... I wonder how many teeth he still has. And then they were the characters in the game. The other thing is the people we got to play in this video game were all friends and family, Ruben said. We couldn't afford to pay anyone. One of the characters in the game was one of Gavin's MIT professors. He's Dr. Robin Brooks, who's probably the foremost robot scientist in the world, according to Gavin and the head of MIT's Artificial Intelligence Lab. Another was a friend of theirs named VJ. Just VJ. Who had an MIT PhD in molecular biology, a postdoc from Berkeley, and is presently gunning for the Nobel Prize in protein folding. Especially with how protein folding later became a gamification software device that people play with the open source tool. I wish they streamed that more as a category, but I don't know. He's the secret character in the diaper, Gavin said with a smile. So yeah, VJ is pretty much the type of guy. Oh, they didn't show him. Bummer. Alrighty. Way of the Warriors engine was nearly used to port Samurai Showdown to 3DO. They didn't only lack the funds to pay actors, they also lacked the money to give them proper costumes. VJ wore a pillowcase as underpants and another bed sheet as his turban. The jewel in front of the turban was from a second-hand Jasmine dress-up kit for little girls, as in Jasmine from Aladdin, Gavin noted. During production, the two nearly ran out of money. Rubens had $6.37 in his bank account. I was eating ramen noodles with Andy, he recalled. Gavin had it just a little better. He was getting paid $14,000 a year to go through MIT's master program. They sold their remaining belongings, like a stereo, to get by while they finished the game. Andy's toilet froze and shattered. It was a disaster. Okay. Alrighty. Their living situation deteriorated during these tough times. Morgan, Jason's dog, lived with us, Gavin said. She was this awesome black lab ridgeback mix, but she shed a lot. We had this white wall-to-wall carpet. We had not vacuumed in an entire month. There was more visible Morgan hair on the floor than there was carpet. People would come in and look at the carpet and go, "Ew, what is with your carpet?" Oh, my dude. You could scrap hair and leave white streaks. Andy's toilet froze and shattered, Ruben noted abruptly. It was a disaster, okay? We went all in on this game in the sense that startups go all in. We want all in on this game. The last $10,000 that we had effectively, although we didn't spend it at last, it could have been our last money. We bought a 3x3 square foot spot at the 3DO's booth at CES because the game show was still at CES 9 square feet. Yeah, my bad. Still working out with my. Oh. Without a publisher, the idea was to show the game off at 1994 CES and perhaps drum up some interest, and in their tiny, modest space surrounded by crap multimedia games, drum up interest they did. In fact, so much interest was drummed up that a bidding war erupted over the Way of the Warrior between three companies. All of them wanted a piece of Naughty Dog's project. Crystal Dynamics from Square Enix. Oh, come on. Crystal Dynamics almost acquired Way of the Warrior during CES back in the 1990s. It shows all this interconnectedness when it comes to old Activision, EA, around this time, in the 80s. They were active around that time making video games and such. Not what they are modern day, but it does showcase how these are really old titans. And Naughty Dog is one old titan, or has a history of being an old titan. After all, Naughty Dog is way different when it was back then with just two people. And even when it came to having contractors. But, things tend to change. The only thing that remains is name only. Hopefully they leave a legacy so more things besides just the name comes out. The players were 3DO itself, Universal Studios, and Crystal Dynamics. We come closest with Crystal Dynamics, Ruben remembered, but there was a split inside Crystal Dynamics. Half of the people loved the game and wanted to put it out. The other half wanted to buy it and use the engine to make Samurai Showdown, which they have acquired the rights to, but they weren't going to tell us until they have licensed the game, and they will. Then they would tell us. I'm just trying to laugh. Then they would try to tell us, you had only one chance now, and that's to work on Samurai Showdown, and that's the only way you're going to get paid. Effectively, we caught onto you. We caught onto that. Yeah, we caught onto that. Had we gone with 3DO and an exclusive, it could have been the end of Naughty Dog. Hawkins put the pressure on the guys to give 3DO the rights to a game, using what they describe as his endless charm and positivity, or his reality distortion field. He just yeah, just go straight to the quote. Reality distortion field, he just had a lot of personal charisma, Kevin noted. He's an incredible, nice, and fair guy too. Every business deal we had with him, he was extremely fair and generous, and that was very refreshing to have a businessman who was always fair. They didn't know if he was painting and hot. Okay, even language is trippy. But they didn't know if he was painting an honest picture for them. I used to put a pencil between my leg and the table we were sitting at with the pointed end down and jab myself every now and then to remind myself not to fall under his spell, Rubin said. He was an incredible persuasive person. It affected everyone around him, including his employees, who seemed to hang on his every word. Word, not world. Word. But. Okay. But Universal offered us to come on the lot to make additional games, to fund additional games, to give us creative freedom, and it just sounded a lot cooler. Roman concluded. Plus, I loved LA. It was, in the end, a better deal for us. This was one of the biggest decision points. He had gone with 3DO as an exclusive. It could have been the end of Naughty Dog. Those games that universally promised to let Naughty Dog make while giving them complete creative freedoms would all fall under a whole new series. Gavin and Ruben will come up when they driving across country. The series would be known as Crash Bandicoot. The History of Naughty Dog Part 2. Yay! This is... Well, at least we're getting close, I guess? No, we're getting close. In 1995, Naughty Dog co-founders Andy Gavin and Jason Rubin was on the verge of something big. They didn't know it yet. Following the creation of their lone 3DO game, the fighter known as Way of the Warrior, Gavin and Rubin was given a tantalizing offer. As discussed at the end of Part 1, Universal Interactive Studios, the winner of the CES bidding war over Way of the Warrior, offered Rubin and Gavin a 3-game contract. Universal wanted to continue its relationship with Naughty Dog in the creation of a new game, but Naughty Dog didn't know what that game would be. Little did they know they would end up concocting a new mascot for the fledgling PlayStation brand that would, for a time, outshining, outperforming, and outselling Nintendo's very own Mario. Disclaimer, contains profanity. Well, at least it says in the article, I guess. Part 1, a new kind of game. Okay, so now I actually understand it. It's Part 1 that have some sub-parts that are all in Roman numerals. So I'm in Part 2 when it comes to the history of Naughty Dog, but I am in the sub part, which is 1 under this Roman numeral. 1, a new kind of game. It took about 1.5 years, and it just about all of their money. Rubin and Gavin's Way of the Warrior finally launched on 3DO in 1995, but their future didn't rest with the 3DO, which was only 1 year away from being discontinued after selling a paltry 2 million consoles. And they knew it. They knew it. Way of the Warrior came out. It was what it was, Rubin said. Obligately. Yeah, I'm not pronouncing things correctly right now. It's just obligatory referencing the game's mediocre quality and soft sales. But Universal said to us, pick a platform, pick an IP, pick a game, and we'll fund it. I'll pick a type of game, and we'll fund it. Andy and I had what we always wanted, which was freedom, but also freedom with enough money to really do stuff. After a couple of years of hunkering down in Cambridge, Massachusetts, the duo got into a car and began driving to California, the home of Universal. During the cross-country road, they began formulating their plans for their next game. Just as they did before making Way of the Warrior, the partners surveyed the game landscape to ensure that went into a logical direction. They wanted to, again, cater to what the market wanted, and not just themselves. First, we were like, what genre should we do? Rubin said. No, Rubin explained. Character action games were some of the greatest games out there at Sonic and Mario. This was before the PlayStation was announced, so let's do one of those. If we can, we'll find hardware where we can be exclusive, because that had worked really well on 3DO. Kuratsky speaking at Comic-Con during Uncharted 3's development. Yeah, we're getting a little bit ahead. And so, the nugget of the idea for Crash Bandicoot was encompassingly born, though it wasn't at all fleshed out yet. Nonetheless, with an idea to work off of, Gavin and Roman had to confront a glaring problem. Who would help them make the game? They couldn't do it alone anymore, as the process creative way of the warrior proved. Even creating titles like The Thief and Rings of Power taxed their time, and game development itself was moving into a different, much more complicated phase.
Andy and I had what we always wanted, which was freedom, but also freedom with enough money to really do stuff,
Ruben explained. Universal said, first, what would you? Alright. First, what would you do to improve your development? We said, we hired employees. They said, do that. So, for the first time, Andy and I had the ability to build our own company. Okay. Two of the first people they hired were David Baggett, a personal friend from Gavin's days in MIT, and Taylor Kirazaki, an experienced visual effects artist working in the television industry. Kirazaki is still with Naughty Dog today. Back in 2013, though. I don't know about 2021, which... Damn. 8 years ago. Although he took a hiatus from the company during the latter Crash days and early Jak and Daxter days, we were primarily doing work on a TV show on NBC called Cease Quest, DSV, with Roy Scheider and the Dolphin. It was working at Universal Studios in the backlog doing visual effects for a fledgling little division of Amblin, Karatsky said.
We were primarily doing work on a TV show on NBC called Cease Quest DSV
with Roy Schneider.
Schneider.
Alright. Roy Schneider and the Dolphin. Holding such a job was a considerable feat for Hiroski, who was only 23 years old at the time. Other than Babylon 5, Sequest was the only show on television doing CGI, and he was familiar with the early tools of the trade, notably Lightwave.
While I was working on that TV show, a couple of guys moved into the same building that we were working in on the back lot,
Karatsky continued. That was Andy and Jason, who had just moved out here to LA from the East Coast to start work on an unannounced game. This was the first time they were going to be working on a game that was more than the two of them and some other buddies. Karatsky befriended Gavin, Ruben, and Baggett. Even say Baggett. Baggett playing wall ball with them on the back lot and generally being happy that they could talk to some other 20-somethings. We hung out socially and they were really interested in what I was doing, he said.
Jurassic Park just came out. The only thing I was envious of the Jurassic Park was that all these guys were using Silicon Graphics and Power Animator to do their visual effects, while I was just using Lightwave.
Oh man, all the Donkey Kong. And their famous poster of the monkey, the rat, and all the animals. This rat is my favorite because of this derpy ass face he's just making. Also, you know, these bastard wasps are just a menace to society. Them having spikes, oh god, it just makes me want to hate them. Wish there was bees. Or bees out there than wasps, but you know. That's how life works. Uh, Other than that, that's pretty much it. So, without further ado, aloha.